Now what will it be? Death or exile?
Hi guys out there. Hello Film Exiles. Welcome to a review for Ford v Ferrari. I'm joined today by one of my favorite people to talk movies with. I'm joined by Christian.
What's going on, Lupe? And the feeling is mutual, man.
So you saw Ford v Ferrari, and if I'm not mistaken, you saw this with your wife?
I did. I saw the movie with my wife, and I also saw it with my father.
Oh, that's really awesome. So it was a bit of a family affair, just a little
Yes.
segment of your family. Very cool. So it will be nice to also hear, what they thought about the movie so we can get, a much broader perspective on it. But I'm very interested in your take. So let's start with general thoughts. Let's start with some background. The film is directed by James Mangold, and it stars Christian Bale and Matt Damon.
I caught that reference.
Yeah. So, what do you feel about those filmmakers? Are you a fan of any of them? Do you dislike any of them? And how did that impact you, going into it in terms of your expectations?
Oh, no way. I'm a fan of all three. I've been especially Christian Bale. I've been such a big fan of his. Even I know it's disturbing, but even going back to American Psycho and Vice. I mean, the guy transforms his body, makes
Absolutely.
himself sound and look like it's just incredible what he's able to do. So yeah, always been a big fan of Bale, and have really liked Matt Damon. Going back, Good Will Hunting on.
Yeah.
And I think he's a good comedic actor, and he's a very good dramatic actor, and he did a good job in this movie as well. And James Mangold has quietly become one of my personal favorite filmmakers,
Mhm.
whether it's Copland or Girl Interrupted, Logan. You've recommended 3:10 to Yuma. I still have to watch that.
It's a
Um,
masterpiece.
I'm so looking forward to it. Because of all that, the background with the history, which I love, as you know from previous pods,
Mhm.
and just what James Mangold brings to the table, definitely was looking forward to this, man.
I couldn't agree with you more. These are three great talents. There's rarely anything that they touch that isn't at least good or decent. So the prospects for this one have always been good in my eyes.
Totally.
So tell us just overall, brief, general thoughts. Don't need to go into specifics
Sure.
yet. What are your thoughts on Ford v Ferrari? Did you like it? Did you dislike it?
Overall, absolutely one of my favorite movies of 2019. I really, really enjoyed this movie. It was 2.5 hours. You did not feel the 2.5 hours
Wow.
outside the first half hour, where there's a lot of like boardroom drama going on and everything like that. Once they get into creating the car and you start getting into the relationship between these two men, the
Mhm.
designer, Shelby, and the racer, Ken Miles, their families, everything they were struggling for, this interesting creator versus corporate back and forth, man, the movie just flew. It
Wow.
just flew, and it rocketed right to the end. And I will say my final, real quick, as we do this very brief review, James Mangold in this movie had a very unique way of bringing together heart,
Mhm.
drama, wonderful action sequences, and comedy so organically. Nothing felt that it was injected into the movie. It just happened the way it was supposed to. And
Mhm.
my emotions rode that wave all throughout the movie, whether it was comedy, whether it was action, whether I was, scared because of the races and the guys were crashing into one another. Just a fantastic way of doing and pulling that all together. Like I said, in a very organic way. So you didn't feel that anything was put in there on purpose. It was there because it just happened. It was
Wow.
life. Yeah.
That sounds really cool. Um, Tell us the acting performances. Obviously, James Mangold didn't just pick nobodies. He picked two really like some of the best actors in the world to anchor this film on. So how did they perform, and what was the sort of chemistry between them like?
The chemistry definitely was fantastic between the two of them. Now, I think that maybe, other people's opinions may vary. I think Christian Bale is a little bit of a better actor than Matt
Mhm.
Damon. That's not an insult on Damon at all. It's just Bale is this method actor, and he brings so much to it. Now, he just did Vice right before this movie, so he bulked up and was kind of fat to be Dick Cheney. and slimmed right down to play Ken Miles. And I saw historical pictures of him, and I saw a couple little videos. Man, he looked and acted just like him. It was incredible.
Wow.
Incredible. Had the
Wow.
Cockney accent down, everything. Just really,
Wow.
he nailed it. Now, Damon had to bring that Southern drawl and that kind of deep Southern charm to Shelby. And Damon still at this age has kind of like a boyhood look to him.
Mhm.
But you know what? Surprisingly, he pulled it off. There were times when I smiled and was like, he's acting like a Southern guy or whatever. But he pulled it off. He bought a good amount, this good mix of cockiness with the same. He was just very ambitious, and he bought a good mix of that together. Very believable. So yeah, I think Mangold got the best that he could out of these two guys, and they did not try to one up one another at all.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, apart from both of them, were there any other standout performances or characters that you probably didn't expect going in and you left impressed with? Or were there any that you didn't like?
Yeah, there's one of each actually. I can't remember the name of the actor, but the actor that played BB, he's an executive in the Ford company. He was the lead. Do you remember the romantic movie with Reese Witherspoon, Sweet Home Alabama? Is that Josh? Is that Josh Evans? Is that his name?
Josh Lucas?
Josh, that's his name. Josh Lucas. Thank you very much. He is BB in this movie, and if you go back and you do your history, he was an executive at the Ford Motor Company, and he has it out for Miles, the racer, in this movie. So the movie has a villain. Every movie needs one. They may have overdone it. It doesn't matter. I thought every step of the way, he was basically the thorn in their side, and he surprised me with how good his performance was because he was slimy, and I got out of the movie. He was like, yeah, I hate him. I don't even know if I'm supposed to hate him, but I hate him. So I got to do some history now and find out if he really was that much of a jerk. The guy that played Lee Iacocca was actually, for me, was the other way. He was good, but he really didn't make much of an impact. And if you know anything about Ford history, Iacocca made a huge impact on the Ford company. I just don't know if he made as much of an impact on the Ford GT, which is what this movie is about. So it was kind of like, his character was more of a throwaway. I didn't want to see Lee Iacocca as a throwaway character, So that would be my good and my one bad.
All right. Now, this film it's been billed as an awards contender. How do you feel about that billing? Was there anything in the filmmaking, the score, stunt choreography that you think really made it stand out above regular movies?
You mentioned the choreography. I know that Mangold used a widescreen camera to do all of the racing sequences. And let me tell you, I don't know if you ever saw that movie, Rush, with Chris Hemsworth.
You know what? I have to see it.
Dude, watch it.
I really need to. Honestly, shame on me. It's on my list. I've heard it's excellent. As a matter of fact, you know what the weirdest thing is? I listen to the score from time to time. Shame on me, but go ahead.
If it's the cinematography in this with the race sequences reminded me of that, but they were grander. They were almost scarier in a way, and scarier from the standpoint, not that you were frightened, but I was worried about the guys that were racing. And the Le Mans is this 24-hour marathon. These guys are racing from 4:00 in the afternoon on a Saturday to 4:00 in the afternoon on a Sunday. And it's incredible. And they captured the grandeur of that race. And that was one of the things that I really liked. The crashes were intense. The shifting was intense. They got a chance to, and it wasn't like Fast and the Furious shifting where you see the NOS exploding and everything like that. It was old school, 1965, mechanical, no computers. Just when they clunked that car into gear, you felt it in your gut. It was clunk. Yeah. And I thought Mangold did a really good job with that. The other thing that I really liked what he did is he kept the story focused on these two gentlemen. And he kept the story focused on their battle between creators, inventors, people that have this ambition, can see the bigger picture, and the corporate suits that are basically trying to bring them down and only care about money. And it's something that we've all talked about in these movie pods, and because of that, because he was able to coax the best relationship, I felt, especially, without spoiling anything, a very surprising relationship between one of the characters and their son, their children. I really think it could potentially be an awards contender because, man, it hit you in the heart. I did not go to an empty theater. It was probably about a third full. We went up against Frozen 2 in the second week of Ford v Ferrari's release. Everybody clapped at the end of this movie. They all felt it.
Wow.
Yeah, they all felt it. So I definitely think it could potentially be an awards contender because of that cinematography and because of the performances that he coaxed out of these guys.
On that note, talking about seeing it with a crowd, seeing it with other people, how did your wife and your father-in-law feel about the movie?
It was my dad. It was my
It was your
father.
dad. Okay.
And my dad and I do like to watch movies together. Since my mother's passing, he has not been to the theater very often. But we do like to watch movies at my house, or we will watch movies at his house and everything. So he's a big fan of them. I love watching movies with him. And this was a movie, because we both love cars and we both like history, that and he lived it. He lived it. He remembered it. He was telling me, remembering watching the news reports of this. And I really wanted to see it with him. So I had a bad virus the week before, and he waited for me. He was like, "No, let's see the movie together. You got to see it together."
That's love. That's love right there.
I was so happy. So he came with me, and he was laughing. I heard him going, like stuff like that. Once in a while, I heard him do the like that, giving it. And I was watching his reactions, and seeing my dad's reactions during the movie was so cool. He was happy the entire time. My wife was there were a couple scenes during the races where there were some crashes with some of the main characters that I won't ruin. And I saw her going, "Oh no." She did that. And when she does that, she's getting into a movie. This is not just, a movie. And I've seen her watch a couple movies before where she'll, no, man, she was getting into it. When we went to dinner after, my dad was telling stories about the races. He was telling stories about the Ford company, about Shelby. And my wife was asking him all these questions. The fact that it sparked all this conversation at dinner, that tells you something. All three of us really like this movie. We really did.
It seems like it's a movie that just hits the ball out of the park on so many levels. And that's really exciting to hear. So you've talked about this movie like it's a perfect movie, apart from the one thing you said about a character who played a more significant role in the company that didn't in the film. So are there any imperfections in the film? Or are you basically saying it's a 10 out of 10 masterpiece movie?
It's not quite a 10 out of 10. I mentioned the 2.5-hour runtime and how it does, quote unquote, race by. The movie is off to the races. The first half hour or so, after it gets past the Le Mans and introducing what the race is and everything, and the kind of what Ferrari has won and everything like that, it does slow down. That first half hour or so is a little slow. There's a lot of boardroom and backroom kind of drama going on, and some corporate drama. And I found myself looking at the clock real quick and saying, "Uh-oh, what did I get myself into?" It was a little slow and kind of plodded along. And I understood what they were doing. They were introducing Lee Iacocca, and they were introducing Henry Ford II and everything like that. Once they started once they started working on the Ford GT and they started working on the car, and Shelby started putting his team together to beat Ferrari, oh man, the movie was off. So my only pick on it would definitely be it kind of plodded along at the beginning. It took a while to get going. Once it got going, highly entertaining.
All right. So to wrap it all up, can you give it a grade, a score, or just give a one-line blurb about the movie? The floor is yours.
If I had to give it if I had to give it a number, I'd say definitely 8.5 to 9. Absolutely. It's a crowd-pleasing movie in the best possible way. We've heard crowd-pleasing in this kind of negative connotation, but no, this movie marries wonderful performances with history. You got to go back and check and see what actually happened and what didn't, but you'd be surprised at some of the funky stuff that's in this movie that actually happened. And they just were able to blend all those different things I talked about with drama, comedy, action, and really make a movie work on a fundamental level that touched you in the heart. And it absolutely worked.
Nice. Well, thanks for the review. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I will be seeing it very soon, probably next week. And then we can have some more detailed spoiler conversations about it. But until next time, guys, Christian, tell the people where they can find you to discuss more about Ford v Ferrari and other movies.
Absolutely. You can get me on Twitter at chart6363. I'm Therapeutic Guitarist.
And you can find me on Twitter at LiveLoveLupe. And until next time, stay exiled.